Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, fractional CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. What's new, David?
Hey, Jesse, it's all good here. Been, busy as usual. Another crazy week. I don't know. That's about it. I can't believe it's Thursday already.
I know.
And here we are again, back online.
Here we are again, and we have another great episode of Deconstructing Data. I'm really excited to welcome Amrita Bhasin. She's the co-founder and CEO of Sotira, and she's nationally recognized as a retail leader whose work has been featured in Forbes, Fortune, Bloomberg, CNBC, and more. And as the head of Sotira, she helps retailers and brands discreetly offload and monetize unsold inventory. So turning a long-standing challenge into a revenue-generating strategy. Welcome to the show, Amrita.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We're so glad you joined us on the show today, Amrita. And we would love for you to kick it off a little bit for our viewers and listeners to get to know you a little bit and hear your story. Tell us your journey. Tell us what led you to get where you are today and be co-founder and CEO of Sotira, and what Sotira is doing for their customers today.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a pretty strong background deep in reverse logistics, which is pretty much the world of overstock, unsold inventory, and returns. In other words, it's typically how do we clear warehouses? Like we bring product in, how do we turn warehouses? It's a huge part of the industry, as well as supply chain. So I started my journey doing mom and pop liquidation. I kind of learned how the industry works, learned a lot about how retailers and brands handle their stock, realized that there was no real automated or streamlined solution for it. And it's an industry it's an $800 billion industry that largely operates off of pen and paper. It's very manual. And so I was inspired by that to go out and build software to solve this problem.
Wow, that's crazy. That's an industry I literally know nothing about. So I'm going to learn a lot on this podcast today. I'm looking forward to it. Let's jump right into the first topic. AI agents in retail and smarter supply chain decisions. Talk to us about how you're using AI to improve supply chain decisions.
For sure. So I think we see again, supply chain logistics, these are antiquated old school industries. I think a really good word to refer to these industries is leapfrog industries, where basically AI is really changing and disrupting the space in ways that we haven't seen before with other technology. Like we're literally going from a pen and paper process of I'm staging freight. So I'm figuring out what that means is like, what pallets, what cases go on what trucks? Like, what's the best way to pack these trucks, knowing that we're packing them, maybe they're driving across a couple of states to deliver goods, and then we have to unpack them, right? That's all done on pen and paper. It's largely done by hand. Same thing with compliance documentation, freight paperwork. All of this is like you go to a warehouse, you need to receive a document, and somebody's sitting on a plastic folding chair shuffling through documents to find your name. It's really manual. So with what we're doing, we're like, how can we use AI to automate these processes? The idea is that when the truck arrives at the warehouse to pick up goods, it already has its freight documentation in an online portal. It already has a system the driver can go to where they can see all the paperwork that they need. Even things like electronic signatures feel really radical in this industry that has largely been done pen and paper in a very manual way that's also mistake prone. That's one aspect about old school industries, is that when everything is revolving around physical handwriting, it's easier to make mistakes. It's easier to misplace documents versus at least with digital documents, there's some level of paper trail. So AI agents are really helping us automate this compliance, fill in paperwork automatically, and be really efficient and save time with how we operate on a day-to-day basis with these workflows.
That's amazing. I can't imagine doing all of that just by hand, and how all of that would be, how they would ever keep track of all of that. It's unbelievable.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit more about like what kind of improvements are you seeing from this?
I think what we're seeing, and we've surveyed our customers, we've had our customers come into the office, we've met them in co-working spaces, we've even driven out or flown out to their warehouses to meet them. We kind of asked questions about this. We're like, hey, like, do you know what ChatGPT is? Have you used AI? And a large percentage of our customers have never heard of GPT. They're not using AI agents. They're not using machine learning. These are worlds and terminologies and technologies that are completely new to a large segment of the population that we serve. And I think that goes for a large segment of America as well. When we're kind of building in these tech bubbles, we forget that we're kind of siloed. There's a lot of people in old school industries that they're not even using Excel. They're not using any technology. They're still kind of sitting by the phone waiting for people to call them, and they're doing orders, they're striking deals, they're making sales over the phone. So for us, that was a huge part of what we're doing is like what is the value of AI in an industry like this? And I think for us, we've seen again, we're saving 10 plus hours of time on a weekly basis. And that's due to faster document generation, automatic like billing, automatic scheduling, like all of these things that to me seem simple. But for the industry, these are really game changers. Like you can effectively have one person with AI doing the work of 3 to 4 people previously, which is the status quo. You have one person for accounting, one person just for scheduling, like what time is the truck coming to the warehouse to pick up and load orders, right? A lot of back and forth. So the time saving is huge, the efficiency saving is huge. And obviously, in this industry, as in many industries, time is money. So being able to save time means that brands, retailers, our customers have more money to invest in other parts of the business.
That's wild to think. No Excel, like, yeah, I can't imagine all the opportunity there is there to upgrade that with AI.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, for
crazy.
sure. I think that honestly, these kinds of industries don't get as much attention when we talk about AI agents and we talk about like, giving people data, right? Like when we make things digital, we have more data, we have more insights. Like giving insights to these kinds of industries has a huge ROI, more so than just building tech for somebody who's existingly tech native. There's a huge impact in these kinds of spaces.
Mm, yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I could see like, let me ask you a question. So we have, you're talking about moving like massive amounts of product. Is it about the logistics of moving it, but is it also about sort of the logistics of selling it, like understanding your uh, understanding your inventory, your supply, any excess that you have, and trying to figure out how to offload that excess and monetize that?
So for us, it's about selling the overstock. It's like we have customers that they, in the status quo, are largely discarding, dumping, incinerating, pretty much effectively destroying their overstock. It's about how can we sell it and help them recapture like a recovery rate on that. As a part
Okay.
of doing that, we've automated a bunch of other processes within the reverse logistics supply chain that we didn't necessarily expect to automate. Like, for example, say we have a truck is coming and they're picking up like pretty much 6 truckloads worth of orders. So we have 3 days in a row during the week, 2 trucks each day are coming. That's a lot of product. We're talking hundreds of thousands of units of beverages, of cereal boxes, of cosmetic products, whatever the item is. Being able to stage that and figure out what truck should fit what product and what order should we pack everything, how tall are the pallets, how can we stack the trucks, like
Mm.
that is a process that we were spending a lot of time doing on Excel. We were spending time doing this manually. And it was hard work. It was effectively a lot of manual math. And we're like, this is a really good use case of what ML and what AI can automate. Like now I can literally just plug in my whole inventory list, like all the SKUs I have into the system, and the system can tell you, okay, this requires 6 trucks. This is how I'd recommend staging the trucks to be the most efficient. And us being able to turn around and give that to our customers and say, hey, you don't need to stage this freight automatically. We will do it for you using our models. That is a huge value add for them.
Yeah. So now that rings a bell. So that's something that I had read about that Amazon has, been doing obviously for a long time. And I love having these conversations where we can talk about democratizing technologies, democratizing AI, because like there's this what you're describing to me is a situation where you have like this giant company like Amazon, where obviously they have the resources to do that. But it sounds to me like, you're building tech that is now sort of democratizing that capability and enabling somebody that obviously isn't nearly as big as Amazon to be able to leverage that and be able to move product more efficiently.
Yeah, I think the vantage point from where I sit is that I am part of like an AI and tech native generation, right? And I've spoken about this with many communities across the US. Supply chain is an industry that skews very old school. It's largely people who are Gen X and boomer generation. It's not a particularly diverse like industry in terms of demographic. And that's going to become a problem because ultimately these people and many of them have very successful businesses. I mean, we work with customers who some of them don't even have websites. They'll tell us that. They'll be like, I've been in this industry for 35, 40 years and I don't even have a website. There's no digital presence of them. They are completely on the DL, they're completely offline. But at a certain point, they're going to have to pass their businesses down to somebody, whether it's them selling their business, whether it's their child or their family taking over the business. And younger generations expect some level of automation. Like my generation wants to be able to see that we can do this in a scalable manner. Sitting in a warehouse and pen and paper, filling out documents, like it's like basically signing papers, taking pictures of them, scanning, sending them over, mailing papers. There's still so much like manual payments that occurs in supply chain, manual documentation. Like it can take weeks just to get a piece of communication back and forth, which to me is crazy. But to the industry, this is an industry that really hasn't innovated at the speed that it needs to, given that supply chain effectively, I would argue, is the backbone of the US. It's the way that our military operates, the way that we get supplies overseas within the US. It's the way our grocery stores operate, all the delivery apps that we love to use, all of our rideshare apps, like supply chain, being able to get products from place to place, like even the healthcare industry. It's huge across the US. And I think it doesn't get the level of attention or the level of innovation or even venture funding, I would argue, that it really deserves, given that so much of our existence relies on having sufficient supply chains. And we really saw during COVID when the supply chain, especially in retail, like for example, products like toilet paper, right? Like baby formula, we saw that start to collapse and people were shocked. It really disrupted people's lives on a day to day basis.
I remember saying, that's funny you say that because I remember saying some of the same things about the data industry when I entered the data industry like 11 years ago, that there was just like not enough investment going into the data industry. Just people didn't understand it. We would
Yeah.
do, VC presentations and all that kind of stuff. And people would be like, oh, this, you can't see data. You know what I mean? Just like you kind of can't see logistics. Like you can't see it. And so they didn't understand it. And where, you could walk in with a product that you could hold and play with, and, someone can understand that a lot easier. So I totally get what you're saying. Of course, that changed over time because companies, and investors started seeing that data is so valuable. Today, data is used for everything. And it became more and more obvious that money needed to be invested in the growth of data. I think that you'll probably see something similar in your industry as well, especially, because it's becoming more data centric as well, right? So like,
Yeah.
you're using data obviously in the AI to do the work that you're doing in logistics as well. So I think that will evolve as well, and I think you'll see more and more investment in it as it grows and as your business grows as well. But it's funny because when you said that, that's something that I experienced as well. Sometimes industries that don't seem quite as flashy, it takes a little while for people to realize the value that goes into investing in them.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Is like these industries aren't considered to be as like sexy, right? Like we went through like the crypto boom, we went through like the creator boom. Like right now, even when I go to a lot of supply chain conferences or like retail conferences, there's a lot of topics of like creators and UGC, like user generated content. And I'm like, those are great. Like those are cool products. They're solving cool problems, but like there's so many basic problems that we still haven't fixed in the industry. Like so
Yeah.
like we work with brands and retailers who they don't have access to the data that they need access to. Like they know that they need to turn their warehouses and they don't know till it's too late what's close to expiration or what's still sitting in the warehouse or what hasn't sold. And I'm like, this is a very rudimentary, like almost like fundamental problem that we need to solve this to really like before we have these kinds of industries again, like integrating GPT or working with creators and doing all of that, like God forbid, talking about crypto and we're discussing like these people, a lot of people in our industry are like entirely on manual payments. Like we need to first like set the foundation of a basic level of technology. And I think that's really where I've seen a lot of inspiration from a lot of the customers we work with is when we show them and they realize the value add of something as basic as automating like a BOL or automating scheduling. So I don't have to call between the hours of 7 to 1 p.m. to make an appointment. I can just make that appointment online and just come in with my truck and just pick up. Like showing this value to our customers and them seeing it is super rewarding for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
So interesting. I love hearing how AI is disrupting different industries.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this a little more. So the $800 billion reverse logistics opportunity for brands. Can you kick us off on this topic, Amrita? Uh-oh, did she freeze? It's not me, is it?
No,
I think she may have froze.
I can hear
So,
you.
oh, you can hear us?
You're back.
Perfect.
I can hear you, yeah.
Perfect. Do you want to kick us off on this topic, the $800 billion reverse logistics opportunity for brands?
Yeah, sure. So we estimate the market size of reverse logistics, which again includes pretty much unsold inventory. So that includes pure overstock products that were just never sold. They're brand new, tags attached, and original case packaging, original manufacturer packaging, as well as returns. Returns is also a component of this market, right? Like you return your products, whether you're returning them to Costco, Target, to your favorite e-commerce brand that sells on Shopify. Where do all of those returns go? Like, where does all of this product go that essentially is not consumed or not purchased and kept by the primary market? And so it flows into the secondary market. And like I said, we estimate this to be an $800 billion industry. And this encapsulates every level of discounting and off price and dead stock stores. This is significant for a lot of retailers and brands right now because as production has increased, as more and more people consume, as like we saw, for example, this summer, we saw the advent of Summerween. And I don't know if you saw this in stores, but they were putting out everything. They were putting out the Halloween candy. They're putting out the Halloween costumes, like a lot of the outdoor decor in like June or July. And everybody was like, what's going on? And it's like the seasons and everything is getting pushed up continuously. Retail is under a lot of pressure right now to be able to deliver and to be able to, again, have these consistent seasonal turns with product. And so as this is all increased, we see that there's more and more unsold inventory on this market. And we're creating a way for brands and retailers to sell into the secondary market. And it's a huge waste problem as well. A lot of conversations we have with brands and retailers are around, you're incinerating all of your overstock. Is there a way that we can make it such that instead of paying to destroy your product, you are capturing a recovery rate on this? So you're actually making money. So we see it as being able to bring our customers from some level of negative because they're paying to destroy up to a level of positive. They're essentially recovering capital back, accelerating working capital, and their accounting team is being able to look at the bottom line and be like, this inventory that we monetized had a direct impact on our business.
I'm curious, where does all that unsold or returned stock go?
It goes to many places. I think in the context of our business, and again, everyone operates differently. This is a very fragmented industry, like deeply fragmented. Like I mentioned, that we have buyers who do not have websites and they can only really be acquired in certain ways. And they have their own communities that they're a part of, right? Like, and that's our job. That's my job as a founder. From this industry, from this background, to be able to go out and acquire these people who haven't used tech. But I think in the case of our business, we flow a lot of these goods to secondary market stores in the US. So a lot of brick and mortar stores, discount grocery stores, off-price stores, surplus emporiums, dead stock stores. So you may have, depending on where you're based or depending on where you live, you may have even visited some of these stores. There's also a large segment of Americans, it's a growing segment, that will actually drive out to these stores to get good deals. So like, for example, like say we supply a store up in Maine, Hoka's, overstock Hoka's, like really expensive shoes, right? Or expensive comparatively compared to the average American's income. And those shoes are now selling at $20. And there's a community of people from New York who would drive all the way up to Maine to get good deals on those shoes. So that kind of like treasure hunt, bargain hunt kind of vibe to this industry is really interesting and has really captured a lot of young people as well in this space, considering this industry has typically been very old school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so interesting.
That's
anything
nuts.
anything more on this topic, the reverse logistics opportunity?
I think I think like it's just interesting to think about when we look at the US compared to Europe. Europe has really got their reverse logistics down. This is due to a couple of reasons. I think one of the big reasons is America just has a lot of waste at every level
Mhm.
of the supply chain. I mean, we have waste at the farm levels, right? Like we have a government that will pay farmers to destroy products to maintain
Yeah,
some level
that's
of price.
true.
Yeah, so I think that our country just we are unfortunately very, very used to waste. Like I mentioned, summerween after Halloween, where does all of the plastic, these are products that are not really made of particularly high quality materials. A lot of it will never degrade into the earth, right? It is literally forever chemicals, it's PFAS, all of that. Where does all of the overstock Halloween products go? What about the overstock Christmas decor, right? Like brands and retailers will put products on sale for 50% off into January, but after January, they can't hold this product anymore. It has to go somewhere. And unfortunately, a lot of it ends up being destroyed. And so we look at why does Europe not have this overstock problem to the same degree that America does? And it largely ties into consumerism, like how do Americans consume, as well as I think Europeans tend to have more legislation around sustainability in these kinds of industries. There's more of a moral and community driven obligation to be sustainable. So the status quo that we have in the US of incinerating or burning or dumping all of these products, it doesn't exist in Europe to the same degree.
Mm,
Wow,
yeah, that's a great point.
yeah, that's unbelievable. Yeah, it's hard to imagine that there's that much waste, but it's true.
There's a crazy amount of waste. I mean, we've worked with lighters, we work with food and beverage, we work with apparel. We've seen waste of pretty much every single product on the market. Again, we have farms reaching out to us. We have brands, retailers, delivery companies, like every customer that we've seen has had overstock of some level. It's really hard in this industry where again, data is really difficult, right? Demand forecasting, inventory forecasting is really hard. Like something like we'll have a brand that will go viral on TikTok and like TikTok shop, right? And TikTok virality, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's very short term. You can
Mhm.
go viral for literally one day and then the next day you're back to your regular sales. But brands will take these artificial like moments where they essentially are stocked out, right? Like they don't have enough stock to stock up and then they can't maintain that level of continuously. And this is one of the reasons that we see overstock at the brand level is it's really hard to predict demand. Like even something like Super Bowl Sunday in the US it's an American specific holiday, right? And I think we as Americans don't realize how much of specific products gets consumed on that day. Like the amount of guacamole, the amount of chips, wings, like beer, like everyone in America who's in the food and beverage industry prepares for like an entire quarter for Super Bowl Sunday, right? The availability of avocados, the available, like all those products I just mentioned, right? The delivery companies who need to be able to deliver to people, the grocery stores who need to have all those products on display right in the front, right? Like the amount of prep that goes into these holidays and the demand on these holidays is unprecedented, right? Like the next week, the demand might go down a lot for guacamole or might go down a lot for chips. So the way that the retail cycle works, it's really difficult to consistently be accurate and be on track with what your demand actually is.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that can create a lot of waste. Yeah, that's
Oh my
unbelievable.
gosh. How do you think what do you think the future of that is? And like, how does data and AI help with that?
I think, and this is a complicated question because obviously a lot of the onus is on consumers to agree and be okay with their data being shared, right? But ultimately, every brand and retailer wants to have accurate information as to what their customers will buy, when their customers will buy, what quantities, how they will consume, right? And that's why I say it's controversial because a lot of people they don't want retailers and brands to have this level of control. Like we look at the example with I believe it was Target, right? They were sending out coupons to expecting mothers who didn't yet know that they were expecting because Target through data, through ads, through data collection, they had so much information on what their customers wanted and where their customers were at that it was even more than the average person knew about themselves. So I think that's really where when I go to a lot of these trade shows, I go to a lot of these conferences, I'm speaking on stage with a lot of these leaders in the grocery industry, leaders in the retail industry. The number one question is how can we get better data and more consistent, accurate data? And that's why I say that the next few years, with the advent of AI regulation, and we're talking a lot, especially with President Trump and the current administration, like where are we drawing the line in terms of what data are we allowed to collect from people, and how are we allowed to use that data? How are we allowed to advertise to people? Like, I guess one like example that's been in the news a lot is like period tracking apps, right? Like they're collecting a lot of data on people. They're using that data to run ads on Instagram, on Facebook. They've been lawsuited because of this, because customers are like, I don't want my data being used in that way to sell me more products. So these kinds of conversations, I think, will continue to be had.
Yeah, that's definitely something we're familiar with, with respect to tracking data and all the regulation around that. And I think that, you're right. I mean, there's sort of this line, this is invisible line, but it's a line that you have to draw somewhere to determine, okay, when is targeted advertising creepy and when is it like really valuable, right? And so
Yeah.
like, I've always been a one that thinks that, targeted advertising is super valuable if I'm seeing ads that are relevant to what I want. If you're learning about my needs and my interests, there's value in that. I'd much rather see advertisements that are related to things that I'm interested in, as opposed to, being bombarded with ads or something that I'm not. But to your point, like, you have to draw the line somewhere. Like at some point, like you can't be so targeted, to your point, that you actually are predicting when somebody's pregnant when they don't even, or maybe they know but they haven't told anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so yeah, so you definitely have to have that line. But I think that it comes down to, and my experience that I've seen is that more people want targeted advertising than don't want it. And I think that we've gotten a little kind of crazy with all this government regulation around what you can and cannot do. When my experience is, we see very few people that opt out of it. I mean, most
Yeah.
people, from my experience, want targeted advertising, because if you opt out, you're gonna see advertising anyway. So why would you want to see something that just is totally irrelevant to you and your life?
It's an interesting question because I actually tested this summer. I was moving around a lot from place to place, and I turned off my location for Instagram and Facebook advertising. I turned off some other preferences, and then you're right. Like I was living in DC, I left DC, and then that was the last information that Meta had about me was my location
Mhm.
was in DC, right? And then I was in New York, and I was seeing nonstop advertising for DC restaurants, and it wasn't relevant to me. And then I realized exactly what you just said. I was like, well, if I'm going to receive ads anyway, like I'm going to be using social media, they might as well be targeted. So I turned my location back on, and at least now I'm getting ads for restaurants close to where I am and events close to where I am, because it
Yep.
is like a almost like many people would consider it to be like a lesser of two evils. Like if you're going to engage in this system, you're going to engage in using social media and even doing
Mhm.
things like search. Like OpenAI is now adding, I heard they're adding advertising now to their search.
Mhm.
Like it's better to have it be relevant than to have it be completely not relevant for anybody, right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I agree. And so, well, we'll see where that goes and how that helps logistics industry down the road. But
Yeah.
for now, my experience is people definitely want to be related to, and the advertising that is relating to them is more useful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think it'll take time for people to learn that. I mean, I think Amrita, your story just kind of like nails that down. Like you learn that like actually targeted ads are okay.
Hmm.
To a certain degree. If the brand needs to be a steward of their audience. So if they are, saying certain things, it can come off creepy, it can come off certain ways, and that's on them. But if you're targeting it accurately and you're saying the right thing, then it should hit the mark. But in terms of reverse logistics opportunities for brands, I think we've covered everything there. Let's transition into sustainable strategies to monetize unsold inventory. So
Yeah,
touch.
so I think like when we're talking with these brands and retailers and we're like, what is your main goal? Especially right now, like we see a lot of retail companies are not doing that great, right? Like as an example, like Target's foot traffic has been down, I think, almost every single week since the beginning of the year, since the Trump administration essentially came into office in 2025. We see companies like Lululemon, a lot of companies that were doing really well in like the 2010s, early 2000s, like they're struggling, frankly, to compete with a lot of the newer generation of brands. Like we look at, like in the case of Lululemon, I was speaking on this recently. Like we see that Vuori, we see Alo, we see there's many other yoga pants companies that are coming onto the market now. And part of the reason why they are doing better than Lululemon, they're able to compete with an older school company like Lululemon, is because of their data. It's because of how they market, right? Like these newer yoga pants, newer athletic wear companies for women, they know how to use social media. They have TikTok collaborations, they have influencers, they know how to reach their customers in the way that people operate in 2025, in a very modern and trendy way. And so I think it's the same when we look at our retailers and brands that have overstock. Part of the question is, how do we offload this overstock? How do we monetize this overstock in a way that doesn't hurt your brand reputation? So that's why I mentioned that we typically operate with a lot of secondary market sellers that do not sell on Amazon or eBay or online platforms. They sell brick and mortar because this is less cannibalizing. If you walk into a store, you're buying based on what your discount is, or what the discount is at that point. It's like that treasure hunt bargain vibe that I kind of mentioned, versus if you type the product in and it shows up on Amazon for a lower price, that's really cannibalizing, and that can hurt brands a lot. So we spend a lot of time thinking that given that overstock is an inevitable problem as a part of the supply chain, like again, the factories have overstock, the manufacturers have overstock, every level of this supply chain has some level of unsold inventory they need to offload. How can we get it out as efficiently as possible?
Yeah, that's a good point. The whole idea of, and I guess that's why they've wasted so much product in the past too, was because they don't want to cannibalize their brand, and so putting it out on the market at a lower price, does exactly that. And so if they were to do it, through Amazon or someone, through a major retailer, then no one's going to want to pay the full price, right? Because they're going to see it cheaper on Amazon. So it's kind of a catch-22 is to try to figure out how can they leverage technology, and media in sort of the new age, right? In the new world we live in today, without cannibalizing their brand. That's kind of the real question.
Yeah, and I think that's why we see a lot of the brands I mentioned, the ones that are very active on TikTok, they're active on Instagram, they're able to do some level of just-in-time production, or in some cases, they actually have more control over their inventory and more control over overstock because of the way that they advertise, right? Like they have so much data with TikTok, with Instagram, that they're able to advertise directly to the right customers that want to purchase, versus hoping that somebody lives close enough to a mall and has the time to be able to come in and buy. It's the idea of like active versus passive advertising, and how you're kind of using data to reach your customers. And I think that's why a lot of traditional retail stores, like I mentioned, are struggling, or they're not doing as well as they were doing the last few years, because there's a lot more competition now, and the brands and retailers that are able to use data are frankly the ones that are going to be able to win, because they're going to be able to reach customers faster.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's funny to hear you say, just hope that they live near a mall. And it's like, yeah, that is really what the strategy was, right? Back in the day, it's just like for retailer, just hoping that your clients will drive to a mall, because what else would they do? I mean, I guess you had catalogs, but
I say that just because like so many malls have shut down. Like some of my
yeah,
favorite stores, I have two options. Either I buy on, don't buy from them because they've shut down, or they're like an hour away. And like, especially during the winter, like the hours are like 6 p.m. and it's like you just get off work then. So it's a serious question as to like retail as an industry is going to have to change. There's going to have to be more delivery options added, more online options. And I will say, like, some of my favorite brands that I've been shopping since I was like a little kid, they have really bad websites. Like it's a really bad experience to be able to purchase, even adding items to cart, like a lot of errors. It's just not a good experience because a lot of these brands and retailers have just not invested in technology. They haven't invested in making their website good. They haven't invested in that user experience. And even though I'm such a big fan, if it's cheaper for me to buy something on Amazon, if it's faster for me to buy something on Amazon, it's really hard for somebody like me to, again, hope that I'm able to get to the mall to be able to buy those products in store.
yeah, definitely.
I can't
Great point.
I can't even tell you the last time I've been to a mall. So that's it's just not a thing anymore. And Amazon is at my house pretty much every day. So
Does Sanibel Island in Florida even have a mall?
Certainly not.
No, you
No.
just go to what,
It's
Tampa?
nearest one's an hour away. Well, I can go into Fort Myers. It's probably
There
about
you go.
it's good 45, 50 minutes from my house. So yeah.
Well, I'm curious to hear, Amrita, about some of your favorite tools in your tech stack. Could you tell us to share your secrets?
Yeah, so I mean, the tech stack we use is we use Merton Stack, we use AWS, Google Cloud. I would say like we're not particularly loyal to one tool or the other. As somebody who's tech native and has been tech native for a while, I love to try out new tools. I'm like that person who has an account on everything. I will never exclusively just use GPT versus Claude. I'm always using a combination of both of them. They both have their own use cases. Claude is good for some things, GPT is good for other things. So I really just like to incorporate, especially when it comes to using AI tools. Like we use different types of CRMs. Some of the CRMs we use are more like AI focused, I would say. Like a Clay has more AI functionality built in than like using like a HubSpot, which is like a little more old school. So we think about that. We use a lot of email sequencing, like outbound tools on LinkedIn. Those are like pretty typical tools that even like a small business would do, is like email outbound, domain warm up. So there's I would say those are the main ones that we use. I'm less of like a Notion person. I would say overall I am more of like a Google Drive person, because I think that one thing I think about a lot is like tool fatigue, especially fatigue when it comes to productivity tooling. Like some of these tools, like Notion is great, but I think that the emojis and the colors and everything can sometimes be a little bit distracting for somebody like me. So I've definitely like I said, like tested tools and played around and seen like what enables me to be more efficient, but also keeps me on track. And I think productivity fatigue is something I really do want to avoid with tools, which is why I do like to test things out and A/B test and be like, what is good for what use case.
I love that you called HubSpot old school.
Compared to like Clay and other like even like Airtable, like HubSpot feels old school.
Yeah, it is old school at this point. I agree. Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing all that. Appreciate you, sharing your tech secrets with us. And I agree. I don't know. I do probably kind of marry myself a little too much to GPT, but I know it's good to have multiple accounts or just anything and like always trying different tools. David, you're kind of like that too. You're always trying, especially the AI tools.
Yeah. I'm always trying different AI tools. I have Julius AI that I use for data. I use Claude. I use ChatGPT very little. I've started to use Grok more for some of the deep sort of scraping and things like that. It does a good job of that. But yeah, I'm always looking for new tools. And I use Open Router, as a development tool, just because then you can pick and choose any LLM for any specific query that you want to make. So
What about
yeah.
like the Splinter AI tools, Amrita? Any like new, cutting edge? Like there's just so many AI tools coming out these days. Like, do you have any new favorite ones?
Honestly, I think that there's been a lot I've like actually kind of like phased out. Like for example, with like the meeting recording tools, I feel like it's not always the right vibe to use those, especially to have those automatically join calls. Like, as being able to ask permission with those, like the line gets kind of blurred, right? Which can be an issue if you're like on call with a big customer and like you have an NDA in place or something like that. So I would say that like when it comes to AI tools specifically that are like customer facing, we really try to pick and choose. So there aren't really a ton that we've kind of like deployed at that level. We obviously are building out a ton of AI and ML in-house. Like we have a ton of models. We make it faster for buyers to get access to inventory, to be able to match inventory, bundle inventory, AI to streamline documentation. But because our customers are so old school, a lot of times they don't necessarily
Mm,
need to know the level of automation that's in place. They don't need to know that this is called like a chatbot. All they care about is getting access to good deals on inventory and getting deals faster. And so for us, it's actually less about using AI terminology, and or even referencing or calling things AI, and more just solving like an innate problem that exists.
yeah, because you're understanding your audience. That's the good marketer in you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's why I say like a lot of the AI tools in the market are really meant for AI or tech native people. And in order to make them effective for like pretty much like mass Americans, like the average American, even like maybe less technical terminology could be used to describe these tools, or they could be shared in a more abstract way versus like, the word agent. Like I know a lot of technical people who don't even know what an agent is. Like I feel like as a community in tech, we can't actually agree on a definition for the
Yeah.
word agent. It's almost like a word that I feel like in some cases does more harm than good because nobody really knows what it means, and like it can deter people who aren't as tech native.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
Definitely. We did get a question that came in on the comments, Amrita, and it's from Nina. She says, how are current tariff legislations affecting supply chain processes?
That's a great question. So I would say that for our business, it has been good in the sense that there's a lot more overstock for us to process. So we're able to see higher volume of that. I think on the other hand, it's been a lot of bespoke solutions. So, like, for example, in the furniture industry, there was a certain level of tariff, right? Like, a lot of the furniture comes from China. Like, that was like a specific conversation we had. Aluminum tariffs deeply affect the food and beverage industry. A lot of the sparkling beverage companies we work with, a lot of the energy drink companies, they have these aluminum cans, right? There's a 9-month production cycle. So, I think that tariffs have frankly made the industry very complicated. Everything I feel like is really operating on a day by day basis. Nobody really knows what production is going to look like even a month from now. Everybody is kind of just like taking the tariff announcements as they come, kind of evaluating like what part of my business does this affect, like the aluminum, the furniture. I mean, there's tariffs on certain materials related to apparel. There's a big discussion right now that I think is really interesting around the classification of um items, especially in relation to like if we look at like bonded warehouses where certain products have higher import taxes. Like as an example, like sneakers have higher taxes than tariffs. So if I put a thin layer of fuzz on the bottom of my sneaker, I can reclassify as a slipper, which means that I have to pay less import taxes to be able to get that product into the United States. So we are seeing a lot of arbitrage opportunities right now due to the tariffs to help brands and retailers basically get their products in faster and cheaper. And that's really interesting for someone like me.
Mm, hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, great point. Well, in closing, Amrita, would you like to let listeners know how they can find you?
Yeah, for sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn. Try to be very efficient at responding to messages. You can email me. My email is amrita@sotira.co, amrita@sotira.co. You can go to our website, www.sotira.co. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you want to chat data, you want to chat supply chain, logistics, AI. These are very common topic of conversations for me. At trade shows, conferences, I'm always eager to chat with people who have new thoughts on the industry.
Amazing.
Well, yeah, this has been great. We really appreciate you joining us on the show today. Certainly learned a lot, and hope our viewers and listeners did too. It's been great. Thank you so much. And let Jesse close us out.
Absolutely. And that I will do. So, audience members, we want to invite you to get powered by BDEX. So, BDEX's industry leading identity graph is the trusted foundation powering some of the top ed tech and MarTech platforms across the ecosystem. So, our comprehensive identity resolution drives results across every channel, from precision ad targeting and website visitor retargeting to direct mail campaigns, lead generation, and turning your anonymous website visitors into actionable customer insights. So whether you're looking to enhance your looking to enhance your targeting accuracy, or recover abandoned carts, scale your lead generation efforts, whatever it is you're working on, you just want to maximize your performance across channels and offline channels, BDEX is going to offer you the most accurate identity resolution in the industry. So if you head on over to BDEX, I can put a QR code here up on the screen for anyone watching on video. If you're not watching on video, just go to bdex.com and click the Talk to an Expert button, and we would love to support you and help you eliminate the bots, the bad data, the bad waste that's just wasting your marketing budget. And we want to help you find the real verified data of your audience so that we can help you drive measurable ROI. But other than that, we really appreciate you coming on the show, Amrita.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.